Welcome to this tutorial on searching databases and using Google. When I ask students where do you go for information, the most common response I get is Google. And that's a perfectly fine answer. I use Google as a starting point for the majority of my searches as well. Since it's so common, let's talk a little bit about how Google works and tips for doing better searches. These tips will be usable not only when you're searching Google, but also when you're searching other databases and using other search engines as well. So let's just do a simple search. Let's do a search for the Apollo missions. So here we go. We have, looks like it wants to be a little wider. There we go. We got a search for the Apollo missions. We got about 1.27 million results in a little over half a second. So what is Google searching? When you do a search, what is actually being searched? When you ask that question to people, they'll typically say the web or the internet. And at the very basic level, that is true. That is what it's searching. But Google isn't doing that search across the entire internet as you're typing and hitting your search results. In reality, Google has a whole series of computers that constantly crawl the web, downloading web pages and indexing the information on them. And it's those indexes that Google searches when you actually do a search through the Google search engine. If you want a description of what happens behind the scenes, there's a very good video. It's just on YouTube. You can go look it up. It's called What Happens When You Do a Google Search. It's by Matt Cutts, who is a Google employee. It's about 3 years old now. But it kind of goes into detail about what's going on behind the scenes at Google, and I'll put a link to that in the notes for this tutorial. The other question you might ask is, what determines what gets displayed? Obviously, it's got to decide what's the most important to display and what to display first. And sometimes you'll see things that right over here will say ad. Those are paid advertisements that have been somebody's paid to have appear at the top of the search results. But for the most part, Google has an algorithm that it uses to determine what should be listed first in these results. Now, it started out back in the early days of Google's in the mid-90s that it used an algorithm called PageRank, which is based on the idea of citations in scholarly journals. The more times a paper is cited, the more relevant and important it is to the field. Google just does it with hyperlinks instead of citations. And that still forms the basis of the algorithm, but now there are over 200 different factors that go into determining what shows up where on the search results page. And that's proprietary information to Google. They don't advertise exactly the algorithms used, but they talk about it in general terms. Another important thing that goes into it is your personal search history. And that if you're logged in to Google, as you can see, I'm logged in. My little picture is here in the upper right, has my name, so it knows it's me. If you do a search and it's something that you've searched for before and visited pages that have shown up in the results, then those pages are given more weight. They're considered to be more important. Google figures that if you did this search before and you're doing it again, you maybe want to find a page that you found before. And so it kind of pushes those up. This is why you might get different search results on a topic that you search on regularly if you do it on a new computer or if you're not logged in as you, because Google doesn't have that history to know that it's you doing the search. Other things that go into it is the authority of the page that is doing the referencing. So if my blog references a page and my blog has 10 or 15 people that read it, that's not going to be as relevant as, say, it's linked from Wikipedia, which has thousands of people visiting it every day. And so that is another factor that weights that basic PageRank algorithm. But let's talk now about the search. So we've got almost 1.3 million results. That's obviously more information than we're really interested in. What are ways we can modify this search? So the first option you have are Boolean operators, and or not. By default, anything you type into the search box gets joined with an and. So here we searched for Apollo and missions. well, maybe I want not just Apollo missions, but I want any lunar mission. So maybe I want Apollo or lunar missions. I do that search, and now I have almost 1.6 million results. So there's a few more that come up with when we combine. So or broadens your search, which sometimes you need to do, not so much on Google. Usually there's always more than you can digest. But if you don't want to rule out any possibilities, maybe you want to do that. Maybe I want to exclude any mention of lunar in my search. In Google, you wouldn't use not, you just put a minus sign in front of the word. Now if I want to talk about Apollo missions but don't mention lunar, I'm down to 906,000. So I've reduced it significantly there. So those are some ways you can broaden and reduce your search. You can always add more search terms. Maybe we want to talk about, well, it's presenting faked here. Let's try that. I'm going to talk about faked Apollo missions. Now we're down to 28,000 results. So adding more search terms will reduce it. Another thing you might do is put things in quotes. So now this means before I was searching for anything that said Apollo or missions or and missions anywhere on the page. Now when you put something in quotes, that says look for this exact phrase. So now I'm looking for web pages that just say Apollo missions, and now I'm down to 429,000. So that's one way to narrow your search. Another way to broaden the search is you can use wildcards. So instead of Apollo missions, I could do Apollo mission and put an asterisk behind it, and that would search for a mission or missions. And that actually, since I had it in quotes, it was looking for that exact phrase, and that doesn't make sense. So let's do it this way. And now we're to 26 million instead of the 1.3 million we originally had with Apollo missions. So those are things you can do. You can also use question marks instead of that replaces a single character, whereas an asterisk replaces any number of characters. And so if, say, I was wanted to do something not in this search term, but say I was looking for something related to nuclear or nucleus, and I wanted to include both of those, I could just type nuke and an asterisk, and that would search all of those terms. Another another way you can narrow your search is to maybe search a specific domain. So maybe I only want something on the Apollo missions from NASA. So I can type site and then nasa.gov, and this will only give me results. Now we're down to 20,000 results, and you can see that all of the URLs that were returned are nasa.gov, nasa.gov, nasa.gov. And so I've limited it to that. What if I wanted to see if there was anything about the Apollo missions at IBM? I could type IBM.com here, and there's 465 results. Talking about computers, it looks like they were used on the Apollo missions, but again, this is limited to this specific domain. And so if you know that you only want to search, say, .gov sites or .com sites or a specific domain, you can use the site operator to narrow that down. So here's the .gov, and that's probably going to mostly be NASA. Again, 26,000 results. Now, if you can't remember how to do all those things in the search bar, Google provides a advanced search. It's over here under the little gear icon, and you pick advanced search. And here's your main search terms. If you put anything in quotes, it would show up here. Any of these words would be anything you put with an or. None of these words are the nots. You can search on numbers. You can also limit other things. You can limit by language, by region, by when it was last updated. Here's that site search, where the terms appear in the page. And you can also limit by usage rights, which is useful when you're looking for, say, videos or images, and you want to have them not copyrighted or allowed to be used by the copyright owner. You can filter by different. These correspond to various different Creative Commons licenses. And if your browser window is just a little bit larger than this, they actually give you the explanations of how to use these terms. Use these boxes in your main Google search. So it kind of goes over the things I mentioned there. So that's it. Those are some basic tips that hopefully you learned something that you didn't know about using Google. And these techniques can be used in just about any search engine, search database that you're using in the database tutorial. You'll see some of these in action again. One last thing is, if you really want to learn about search and practice your searching skills, there is an excellent blog called Search Research by a Google search engineer, and Dan Russell is his name. There he is. And every week on Wednesday he posts a search challenge. So here's the one from yesterday. I'm recording this on December 3rd. And then on the following Monday he posts how he found the answer and discusses search techniques and tips and tricks. And you are challenged to go and search and report in the comments how you solved the search and what steps you took. And this is an excellent blog for tips and tricks and techniques to improve your search skills and finding the information that you're looking for. So that's it for this tutorial.